Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the March issue of Gain Talk with Tom Jacobs. Tom is an evolutionary astrologer, energy worker, and channel supporting people in coming out of pain and powerlessness into acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. His work with the archetype Lilith, which is the first wife of Adam, was particular interest to me, as I'd been told about my Lilith in relationship to the men in my life. So I'd sat back and asked Creator, who was the very best on Lilith, because I wanted to know more, and voila. Tom and his amazing book, Lilith, Healing the Wild, came up. So hi, Tom, how are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about yourself and how you came to your passion about evolutionary astrology, Lilith, and your work in general?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So we have to start at the very beginning. When I was a little kid, what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I never told anybody this until maybe 10 years ago, but certainly not then. I wanted to be a scholar. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to learn things. What I realized when I started doing evolutionary astrology in 2003 is that what I really wanted was to understand why people did what they did. So that's a driving force in my life that motivates me, because when I started doing evolutionary astrology and looking at the emotional impacts of our experiences and how beliefs get formed, karma, blah blah blah, all that stuff that I work with, I was able to, in any given chart, understand and explain to a person why she does what she does.
Right.
So this is really and that's the first metaphysical work that I did. Since then I've learned mediumship and channeling and energy work, and I work with crystals, and I do all kinds of things, but that first thing was getting that language of astrology so I understand a person. Now, I don't understand why everybody does everything, but if you
Right.
give me this chart, I can tell you why that person does things.
Right.
So that to me is just this opening into meaningfulness for me personally, and then I find I'm good at translating things for people so it works out for everybody. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's the driving motivation. And then in 2003, I overheard someone talking about astrology, which I'd read sun sign astrology, the kind of basic stuff you might find in a newspaper or on a basic
Mm.
website.
Yeah.
And I learned that, but whatever, I didn't give it much credence. And that was like in my 20s. But when I was 33 at that point, I think, or 30, I was at that point. Something perked, my ears perked up, and I knew I had to learn whatever that was. And so I dove in,
Right.
and within I studied it like it was my job, and within a year I started to see my first client. So
Oh, that's
that
fantastic.
yeah, that was 2004, and then all these other skills got added. But yeah, that's kind of where this came from. I was looking for a tool to help me understand, frankly, why life was worth living.
Right.
And if
Right.
I can understand my pain, then
Right.
I can have some peace. And then oh my gosh, and then, you know, 10 times as wonderful if I can help you understand yours. Then
Right.
that makes the world such, you know, there's potential there then. Instead of saying like, let's hope for the best or let's meditate on goodness. Well, no, actually talking about what's really going on so you can understand yourself and let some crap go. So that's kind of where all this comes from for me.
And evolve and
Exactly.
transform, right?
That's right.
I
That's right.
mean, that is what it's all about, is our souls coming in to evolve and transform as we came in to evolve and transform and
That's
shift those things that maybe aren't working anymore that we thought might work before
that's
they
right.
came in. Yeah, your work is incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so tell me how you discovered Lilith, because of course, with me working with you,
Yeah.
Lilith, came up into my chart, and I realized the importance of Lilith. It's not that I hadn't heard of her,
Hmm.
but if you can explain how you discovered it and the importance of her archetype, particularly at this time in our planetary evolution.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I dove into astrology in 2003, I started to find mostly on websites because books wouldn't have casual mentions of this. But with Lilith, I kept finding what I call the three Liliths warning. where
Oh.
somebody in a message board says, hey, I just noticed that my blah, blah, blah Lilith is in the second house in Taurus. What does that mean? And somebody else responds, whoa, ho, ho, wait a minute. There are 3 Liliths. Make sure you know which one you're talking about, over and over again. So there wasn't any substantive discussion. And I was like, wait a minute, that is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else, what does my Chiron in the first house mean? What does my Pluto in the 9th house mean? People are sharing answers. But it seemed this weird, obfuscative thing where people just couldn't get their minds around it. And then I started looking up Lilith myth stuff and finding everyone saying she's a demon, she's the mother of all demons. And I was like, my thing, when I hear somebody says that's evil, I'm like, I got to find out what that's about, because I know they're wrong. Because there's no part of our psyche that we should fear.
No.
Like, so we have to learn how to manage, ground, and make intentional, healthy choices, working through emotional crap and fears and blocks. Anyway, so that's how it started. I was like, that was weird. Like, oh, make sure you got the right one. And then they would say, oh, well, there's an asteroid, there's the true black moon, and there's the dark moon. So as I started doing research, I was like, this dark moon is this hypothetical second moon, meaning there are people who actually believe, even now in the 21st century, with all the tech we have available to us astronomically, that there is a second moon orbiting the Earth that we just haven't yet seen.
Wow.
So that's the dark moon. Cross that off your list. Don't even worry about that. And then there's this asteroid, which we can see, with the aid of a telescope. That's in the asteroid belt. And then there's this, Black Moon Lilith, which is what I mostly focus on. So anyway, I just started parsing all this out and reading what people were saying, and everybody said she's a demon, and I was like, baloney. So I started asking my guides, what is the deal? I started meditating and opening up and saying, there's something else here. And oftentimes the meditation on that kind of thing will be staring out the window at a tree, seeing if someone answers me, just being open. And I started to get answers. And so, essentially a face of Archangel Metatron is who started answering questions. And his name is Sariel, Sariel. And so that just grew, and I'd go on hikes and he would tell me stuff. He'd say, here's what the deal is. And then I'd write it down. And eventually there's a natal report and a book. And then I was teaching it to people. So.
Right. No, I know. The book's incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Goes in all the details, right?
The labor of love. This Lilith bit is a labor all across 100% labor of love, because to have people wonder if they should shame themselves because they're a meat eater born into a vegetarian family or vice versa. Oh, that's just ridiculous. So this is a labor of love for people to come in. Oh, so then, you asked about why Lilith is so important.
Right.
I'll just say it's this portion of your consciousness, anybody's consciousness, that is the wisdom of the natural world preloaded in your root chakra at birth.
Right.
So if you don't listen to your body, you're going to be unhappy in a billion ways. If you don't honor, if your body cannot eat, well, I just use that example, meat.
Right.
And everyone's telling you you're supposed to, then you're going with the status quo or the expectations around you. But if you're not listening to your body, you're going to mess yourself up, and vice versa. Maybe you need meat twice a week, and everyone says, no, you can't do that. So you have to listen to your body. That puts you in touch with your body as an extension of the earth itself. There are cycles, ebb and flow, feelings wax and wane, needs come and go. This month I need more magnesium. That month I need more calcium, whatever. It's like things change in the body constantly. Yeah. And it connects us to. So that's a physical side of it, but autonomy, self-trust are the real kind of behavioral, psychological outcomes, like goals that we want to have. So if I listen to my body, it helps me build trust in my instincts. And that's the Lilith thing. Right. So you have weird health issues, look at what you're eating. Look at how you treat your body. Look, how many stories I heard in my teens and 20s of either my peers or people just older than me, women taking birth control pills and having their whole endocrine system messed up. Right. Well, that some of them were prescribed that because of irregular cycles. Well, irregular cycle indicates you have to listen to your body, something's out of balance,
Yeah.
and then you're going to, anyway. So
Yeah.
it affects medicine and health and sexuality and relationships and fairness. And, you know, again, if one
And
trusts him or herself.
yeah, and the entire component of Lilith being cast out through the whole patriarchal system is about the separation. The separation of our bodies, our minds from our souls.
That's right.
And the big deal is from Mother Earth, which is the source of all source, right? Other than
That's
the
right.
source.
She's our mother. While we're embodied, the way the Ascended Master channel talks about it is, while we are embodied, she's our spiritual mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that is the time now, and the timing. You and I've talked about that. We talked a little bit about the timing. Can you explain more about why this time now? Because there was so little known, other than the fact, as you said, she's a demon. And when I was looking at it, just like you, I was going like, no, right? That's not true. Welcome to the patriarchal system, right? I mean, it was designed to oppress women. What better way to do is to take this archetypal, independent, non-submissive, non-subservient female energy and create her into a demon. So why this time? Why this time on the planet and not 20 years ago or 100 years ago, right?
So why has a lot to do with what we have called the end of the Mayan calendar. And what I want to explain about that briefly is, I don't need to go in this whole thing, but people presumed, right, for years preceding it, that it was the end of a cycle. Well, it's the end of a cycle that marks the beginning of a process.
Right.
So in my channeling and what I've come up with about this, and I do have 10 or 11 videos from, like, I don't know, 2010, 2011, 2012 on YouTube about this. There's a playlist.
Good.
But the basic idea is all the tools for the evolution of consciousness are now available to us. And we are now having more experiences of ourselves as multidimensional beings, which means other life issues will come up. Instead of that thing kind of being, you know, in your pocket and you're like, yeah, I got to deal with that issue forever. You know, it's been there. Now it is like jumping out of your pocket and you got to go chase it down the hall because it's like jumping around. You can't ignore what is the most painful things that are unresolved from other lifetimes. And the image that I always get with this from the Ascended Master is, imagine you're in a room full of cubicles, like an office, and you can kind of hear this person talking on the phone over there, but the process with the thinning of the veils would be one way to think of it. But think about cubicle walls just really slowly receding. Like every week they inch down, nudge down an inch every week. And then suddenly you're looking at that person talking on the phone in the other cubicle, and you're being confronted by what that person's feeling and carrying. That's your other life self. Who carries the most intense, most awful things. So since, and in my sense of it is that it wasn't in 2012, but it's actually in late October 2011, and it's just different scholars have different things, and that vibes with me. And then the year plus to the end of 2012 is like this settling period. But anyway, for the last, I don't know, 8-9 years, or 7-8 years, we have all been increasingly dealing with that category of problem we carry in our unconscious. Now, the reason it's not in the natural order of things for us to hold on to tension. So what is unresolved must come up. We have this acceleration process the last 7-8 years. So that's why. And for the collective on the, I feel like I'm shouting, sorry.
No, you're not. It's great.
This is my soapbox time.
I love it.
Give me something to do it. I drag this, I call it like this nested set of soapboxes, and I just kind of sort through which one I can get up on. Anyway, so this is a huge.
And this is critical stuff. Like just bring it on, because you know how I feel about this.
Well, let me know if I'm shouting. That's all.
You're not.
Okay. I don't want to, stress out your listeners or whatever. So.
No, you won't.
Okay. So this whole thing about the imbalance, the elevation of the masculine that results in the diminishment of the feminine, which defines patriarchy, for roughly the last 6,000-ish years, since the advent of like monotheistic religion, right? Since the beginning of Judaism, roughly. Right. Or you read the book, but anyway, for your listeners. But
no, they need to know this, right?
That thing about should the feminine, even literally women, but also the earth and anything that can't be controlled, should the feminine be shamed? This is a question weighing on the hearts of billions of us in different ways. So why now? The things I said about the timing, but also we cannot consciously step into our own self-caring, self-loving empowerment if we are carrying the residues of others telling us we should be ashamed because we want autonomy, or we have an opinion, or we don't want to have sex right now, or I need to eat meat in my vegetarian family. Like all those things where we might go against the grain and challenge others' perceived security in the status quo. Just because I need to go my own way, I need to trust myself. I need to say yes to passion and no to being controlled, Lilith themes. I should not be, I can't move into my empowerment if I carry the residues from the last 6,000 years of shame and guilt and shunning and being run out of town and being vilified and being called a witch. And, we can't, so that's why, and it's a global issue. And I'll just tell you, astrologically speaking, about 2 weeks before Jupiter entered Scorpio in late 2017, about 2 weeks before, this is when the Harvey Weinstein stuff's accusations came to light. So the beginning of this Me Too thing. That is not just a moment that's a year and now it's extending into a year and a half. No, this is the beginning of us being confronted with all those things under the surface: the pain, the shame, the guilt, the being ignored, the being used, the being controlled and threatened and sanctioned and punished. All those things must come to the surface. And so we are in, it's not, some people might say it's the Me Too era. Others might say, I sure hope that's a fad. But the reality is this, people don't want to deal with it or hope it's going to be over in 2 or 3 days. But anyway, we're all here in this place. We have acted out the cultural shaming of all that is feminine. And we've done it together. And so there is this massive opportunity for healing, but individuals and communities may writhe and struggle as the pain comes to the surface. I mean, I did all this Lilith work starting in the questions I asked started really in 2004, got clarity in 2005, wrote this Neto report, 2008, the book came out in 2012. I worked on the book from 2005 to 2012. But there's just this lag. I was seeing it a little ahead of time because I was like, whoa, that's an issue. We need to have this. Anyway, so now it's like the Lilith stuff I've been doing for, 13, 14 years. It's finding a bigger audience because people are like, wait a minute, I don't want to be shamed either. Wait a minute, I'm not going to put So anyway, part of as you found out in the Lilith book, and I hope your readers check it out, because I spell out 9 stages of this archetypal process. And this is just me coming up with this, observing how people live this energy and what kind of blocks come up, what kind of tricks we can employ to heal. But anyway, the 5th one is anger out of the 9. And that is what it seems one should be stuck in. Like, you deserve to be punished, and you deserve it if you're going to be Lilith. If you're going to go against the plan, is a way to say it, then
you're out of your position. You're here to move out of your position here, right?
That's right. You don't know your place. Yeah, exactly.
You're moving out of your place.
So if you do that, it's expected you're going to be enraged. Well, we don't acknowledge, we don't yet fully as a collective understand that all rage and anger comes from pain. So what I'm saying is, I understand individual person or thousands of people. I understand if you're angry. I invite you to honor that, but also refuse to get stuck in that rut, because it will destroy your health and your relationships and your faith in people, your faith in life, and your ability to bring your creativity and passion to bear to whatever purpose you want to live.
Exactly.
So I'm grateful for the opportunity to bring this forward. And I'm also happy that, honestly, people do not come forward in droves and say, why is a man teaching this? Nobody does that. They just kind of accept the teaching, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to
And that is critical because I'm going to skip
Yeah.
I'm just going to switch out a question here.
Yeah.
Why is it important that men and women, men particularly, understand the positioning of Lilith in their chart? Because this isn't just a women's issue. This is what people think, oh, no, it is not. This
Right.
heavily involves the healing of men. So can you
That's right.
expand on that? I mean, who better than you as a man embracing your Lilith be able to share and teach this, right?
Yeah. Somebody commented on a YouTube video within the last few weeks, and it was a man who said, oh yeah, I have Lilith on my son in the 10th or wherever it was, but Lilith on his son. And he said, yeah, I have gotten that treatment. That's weird. I never understood it. So it is relevant. It is applicable. And so why is it important? Because each of us falls within ourselves on this continuum of masculine to feminine. We have both energies, and they're all kind of, like, let's say that I'm, roughly 52% masculine. I'm 48% feminine. Maybe you're the exact same way, or the inverse, or maybe you're 70% feminine and 30, but we're all somewhere on this continuum of how we live these energies. And what I'm saying is active versus receptive.
Right.
Okay, so that's the idea. So when do I act versus when do I, allow, would be a good way to say it too. And so we all have that in us. This patriarchal definition of gender roles, based in, pipes, based in genitalia, right? That is a construct to attempt to keep things in order.
Yeah.
The whole, think about, coming together into more and larger societies. The agricultural revolution is 10,000-11,000 years ago ish. When we start living in groups together, more control, more rules have to be implemented to either protect people or to tell people who they should be in order to function better together. If you're in a nomadic group of 20 people and you're all related and you're just wandering around, or even 100 people, everything's very different. You're going to have a social order, but when you're talking about having like thousands of people come together, there has to be more rules. So it's almost, a natural expression of humanity going down a certain kind of road toward a certain kind of progress to have more rules. But the source, I'm sorry, this is a long intro, but let me just say this.
Okay.
I remember the question, I promise, but the generation of the patriarchy, and I just want to be clear for everybody, and this is intended toward helping people ground a little bit into this, even if they're angry and hurt. But the genesis of the patriarchy isn't at first intended to shame the feminine or punish women or hurt women. The genesis of the patriarchy, from this channel perspective, again, this is Ascended Master Jehudi Thoth Saint Germain, that dude, Hermes Merlin. He says it actually was humanity started to feel less safe. And so this is an experiment. Can we introduce structure and control methods into our lives to try to protect ourselves? Well, then you have to elevate the masculine, the masculine energy or impulse, which builds and constructs and shapes. Then, in order to make sure that that rhythm could be sustained, then you have to diminish the feminine. So this is really important, because I want anybody listening to this, man or woman, who feels like Lilith's strong instinctive energy or autonomy and maybe has felt punished or sanctioned or shamed or whatever, vilified. I want you to understand that this is a collective thing, that, the collective soul, all that is, goddess, God energy, that we are experimenting with. What is it like to emphasize one part of the human psyche? Well, then naturally diminish or the other part. So that's the imbalance of the patriarch. And I go into that in the Lilith book, and also a companion volume. It's not on astrology at all, but it's a channeled book called Goddess, Past, Present, and Future. It's almost like a companion volume where Jehudi says, here's the deal with the patriarchy, here's how to heal it. So anyway, I recommend that too.
Can you get that on Amazon along with?
Amazon,
okay.
Kindle, and tdjacobs.com. Yep, exactly. It's got a picture of the Earth on the cover. That's like a picture from the moon or whatever. So so we are all in this together.
Yes.
And so we all have the energy within us. we're all in this all that is experiment, this goddess God consciousness experiment. You know, our souls are in cahoots together to learn through this lens. What's it like if we do this? So now, you know, women or people who feel subjugated, anybody in that category,
Right.
have to confront pain and anger. And anybody who's in a category, the other category that may have been subjugating people or controlling or abusing people, now has to confront the guilt and shame about having done that. And should I
Right.
be responsible for just doing what everybody else was doing?
Right.
So that's part of the Me Too thing, where some people who
Right.
are accused, and it sounds credible because like 30 people or 60 people say this
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
I just even read a headline the other day about Bill Cosby's attorney, you know, why he pleaded not guilty, because he believes he did nothing wrong.
Right.
And the stories are precisely the same.
Yeah.
So like what, these people who couldn't possibly know each other are collude, you know, making up
Yeah.
stories and anyway,
Yeah.
getting their
Well,
stories straight.
that's that whole sense of
Yeah.
entitlement in the predator,
Well,
in that
exactly.
extreme of the power over of what you've been talking about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I, you know, in getting my needs met,
Yeah.
if I have done things that have hurt others,
Yeah.
should I feel crappy about that? Should I take responsibility for how they feel? That's kind of what that group of people is. So anyway, it's a global dialogue that is just getting started and is going to color a lot of things. But why it's important for men, because part of the healing is in overcoming victim perpetrator dynamics. That's where I
Yes.
wanted to go with this.
Yes.
So I just want to tell you an anecdote briefly. When I kind of about this, because I was caught off guard by this and I didn't understand it at first. Well, I started work at this place when I lived in LA, and my boss, somebody's assistant sent, or somebody sent their assistant to come give a message to my boss who wasn't there. So the assistant walks around the corner, stops in the entry to my cubicle, and has this deflated, shrinking, constricting look. And all I can interpret it as is I somehow remind her of her rapist. Now,
Oh,
I don't know if she's been through that. I don't know. But
right.
that was the energy of like, you know, it was like total recoiling, like
Right.
I had, or somebody who looks like me had, or who has my energy profile hurt her.
Right. Right.
And anyway, so I tried to have this combo with her briefly. She left, but I thought about it for years. Obviously, I still remember it because, like, in some lifetimes, we are doing to each other what the culture says we should.
Yeah.
Just briefly, the
Yes.
guy, the Virginia governor here in the U.S., you know, he says, "Oh gosh, you know, this is a blackface photo." He's like, "Oh, that was me because it's in my yearbook thing." Then the next day, he says, "Wait, that wasn't me, and I'm not going to resign." And everyone's like, "You got to resign." You know, he's helping start a conversation
Yeah.
about shame.
Yes.
What he's not willing to take on the shame from this thing,
Yeah.
right? That he did. So anyway, all of this fits together with
Yes.
all of this healing. And
Yes.
so, you know, if somebody has used aggression to, so to speak, get his or her needs met, and then somebody else says, or desires met, or whatever, or just fulfilling this kind of egoic sense of privilege, whatever. But then the other person's like, you wronged me, and blah, 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 here's the police are knocking on your door, or whatever.
Right.
We all have to confront the role of shame and
Yes.
guilt
Yeah.
and also anger, and recognizing, again, I want to lead this back to the Lilith idea.
Right.
If you are angry, will you acknowledge it and honor it, but understand it comes from pain? Will you deal with the anger, but then look into the pain so that you can actually work with it and understand it? Because the healing does not come through yelling
No.
and being angry. The healing does not come through telling you you're a terrible person
No.
because you
Yeah.
took advantage of me. And we are co-creating these things. This is
Yes.
not blaming the victim, but we are co-creating
No.
these to learn
Yes.
about these power dynamics. And again,
Yes.
so okay, now I have to do this. Healthy Lilith people refuse to be shamed because of what their body does
Yes.
or what they need as far as nutrition or sexuality, or what they do not need regarding healthcare, nutrition, sexuality.
Yes.
You know, healthy people do not accept shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are in this writhing point of the beginning of this exploration.
Exactly. And as you
Yeah,
said to me,
yeah,
what is power? What is real
that's
power? And that just comes all into this. What is
that's
it? And that's where
that's
we're moving from power over into empowerment and then all of the things in between, right?
that's right.
So fascinating.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, so what type of tools do you use when you're working with people in their astrology chart, and how do you read, because we didn't really touch on it, how do you read Lilith differently? Because I know some people, you explained to me that they kind of look at it, but you come at it from a place where you really get at the meat and potatoes. That's what I'm going to
Yeah,
call it, the meat and
right.
potatoes
Okay,
of
good.
Lilith.
For the non-vegetarians.
For the
Yeah,
non-vegetarian,
yeah.
sorry, or the
No, it's
plant-based,
fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
substantial starch or whatever. Yeah.
I won't
Um,
take that shame on.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So first, when I add Lilith to charts, I'm talking about the true black moon, which
Right.
is also the technical term, and don't the technical term is osculating apogee, not oscillating, but osculating.
That's
Anyway, that's
okay.
a technical term. But in astro.com, which is where I make my charts because they have a bunch of asteroids and points available, you on the additional asteroids or additional bodies thing
Mhm.
on the extended chart selection page, you put in H13.
Okay.
So that is technically how to retrieve this. Most people use the mean position of this true position, which is averaged out motion.
Okay.
And the reason is because, the reason is because they perceive the erratic nature, the highly moving, the quickly moving point of the true black moon is just too erratic, and we just can't use that.
Okay.
Well, there first, the archetype of Lilith is changing and can be seen from a mind perspective as erratic, but it's fluctuating, it changes, it's in tune with the moment. So it kind of fails to see the core of the archetype. And it's the mind's version of how can I have something more reliable and controllable that doesn't confuse me because I want control. That's what our minds want.
Right.
So most people use the mean position, and most of your listeners, if they go look it up and software or whatever, they read about Lilith online. If it's not on my site, they're reading, or my blog or videos, they're reading about the mean position.
Right.
Do not use that. It can vary up to 30 degrees in any chart,
Right.
because it's like asking a blow-up doll what a woman is like.
Right.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Not to be too like,
No.
like that. This
Yeah.
this this plasticized thing is
Right.
waiting to be acted on.
Right. It's like you talk about, okay, Lilith, here's the equality of the woman, like full on Lilith, and then we've got the as you call her, the plastic stepmother Eve, right?
Yeah,
And when you're looking at the
exactly,
whole thing. Exactly.
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 The male idea, or the mind's idea of what
Yes.
the feminine should be like versus what the feminine is like.
Right. Right. The I always
Yeah.
go back to that movie, The Stepford Wives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're actually robots in this movie.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert! Sorry, I just ruined
Yeah.
it for everybody who hasn't
Yeah, I
seen it
know. It's
5 years
okay.
ago.
Too bad. It's an old movie.
I
If you
know.
haven't seen it, go see it because it's wild.
Well,
That it
I think someone remade
epitomizes.
it like 10 or 15 years ago. People remade it, so I think it's even a
Oh,
little, yeah.
even cooler, wilder.
Well, not cooler, but I mean more recent in
Yeah,
people's memory. But yeah,
cooler
I
from
think
the standpoint to look at the archetype of it, of that whole patriarchal system of like here's what a woman should be like
that's
instead
right.
of the reality. I
That's right.
found it fascinating. So
And
really, really cool.
so I use H13 in charts, and I also use the asteroid Lilith, which is number 1181, and I treat that as about the kind of like an activist or advocate idea, where we work on behalf of people
Hmm.
who fall outside the safety of the middle of the bell curve, or people who feel disenfranchised or marginalized. But I
Mm,
primarily use H13, the oscillating apogee, the true black moon, because it represents this raw, visceral, primal wild. And so for the
right,
true Black Moon Lilith, and so how do I work with people on their charts? I look for, where it is by house and sign. It's about where that person needs to behave instinctively, listen
right,
to the messages of the root chakra, the body, that whole bit. So other tools. I mean, I use intuition, and I work with spirit guides, and I probably the primary tool with the natal chart doing Lilith work is that I've developed the ability to find in somebody's energy field and consciousness and chakra system, kind of all at the same time, where debris is held, where knots and blocks are, and
Right.
where pain occurs, where something's stored and carried. So when I have permission, I can step into somebody's energy field and find these things, even find the inner kid or the other life self who
Yeah.
needs to unwind this
Yeah.
tension, anger, or pain. So that those two, the astrology chart gives me some words. And honestly, when I use astrology charts, it's a way I connect to the client's guides.
Yeah.
So my guides have said, you don't need astrology charts. And I'm like, you know what? Astrology is a fun game and I like it. So I'm still going to use charts.
Yeah. Good.
And it helps put words to things quickly.
Good.
So those are the tools. And then of course, energy work to unwind things. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. That's important because you're releasing those unconscious components around that.
That's right.
Okay, so we want everybody listening to why they need to do this. Why is it important for them, particularly in this time frame, for them to really look at Lilith showing up in their life? Because it's starting to appear everywhere. And so, and let's tie this into, how can they looking at how they do this and how they can work with you and book with you in that.
Mm-hmm. So why is because you are tired of being frustrated because you're not who people told you should be.
Right.
You're exhausted. You're not feeling well. You don't want to work at that place where they're telling you should be a certain person, or the people in your family or your social circle who can't listen to your uniqueness. Like, it's exhausting to waste or leak energy with not being authentic and knowing and trusting ourselves.
Right.
So why is, please recognize that you're done with being, and I'm not saying you, Catherine, but like everybody,
no, I'm done though. That's true.
I know you are, but I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm like pointing this at you. But just dear listener, are you not? That's a better way to do it. I can ask the question: are you not complete with trying to hide who you really are? Anyway, this autonomous thing where you trust yourself and you're in contact with your endocrinological impulses, your hormone system, like your body, because you're done with feeling sick because you're trying to force yourself into a mold. That's why, man or woman. So that is why. And how to work with me, I actually have two websites.
Oh.
The first one is where you book sessions and do all that bit and read articles and see the crystals and everything. And that's tdjacobs.com.
Okay.
Like Tom, like the darndest, TD. Okay, Jacobs. The other site is healingsuicide.com, which may be relevant to some people listening because it tells a story of soul and how suicide affects it and what happens after death. So you can understand. And also then the last part is about dealing with emotions that may lead us to lose hope and be despairing.
Right.
So anyway,
that's important today. That's excellent. Thank you for bringing that up. That's really important, right?
Yeah, like that phrase, healing suicide. Really? Yes, you can heal the residues from other lifetimes. You can heal the residues of your loss of another person who succeeded in this life, right? Or even somebody else's or your own attempts. Anyway, all these things can be healed. So that second site is a little smaller. Anyway, I recommend people check that out. But to book sessions, tdjacobs.com. And I also have the book, of course, as you mentioned, and the True Black Moon Lilith Natal Report, which is orderable through my site as well. And that goes through your own house sign aspects of the true Black Moon, not the mean position, and then 5 years of transits and progressions to your Lilith. So there's a tool in there.
Okay, that's excellent. So is there anything else that you want to add in? You want to talk a little bit more about the healing suicide component? That's a big deal because it's, especially today, that's part of the conversation that's coming up because we've, our mental health has been so separated from everything, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'd love to talk about that for a minute. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't promoted it a lot because I was essentially nudged by spirit to do it.
Yeah.
To codify what they had told me, what I had learned.
Right.
And a lot of the sites half channeled from Jehudi where he's like, this is what happens and what. So I was nudged to do it. And so I haven't promoted it a lot. I haven't blogged a lot on it. I've done like 2 or 3 posts, but I'm going to get into it more. The idea is that I want people to be able to read these things. They're going to feel viscerally in their guts are true. And the message is, they're going to feel it's true when they read it.
Right.
Because the message is all things can be healed, yet we have not perhaps fully learned that. And we
Yeah.
have not learned how to witness despair and
Right.
hopelessness.
Yeah.
This is one of those shadow things that we hope we don't have to deal with. Well, we
Yeah.
also don't know how to deal with grief. And
No.
we also don't know how to deal with, when everybody's happy and we are just the person in the room who is feeling despair or something. So anyway, it's just to give this not just to give a message of hope, but to give this teaching of this is how your soul sees your life.
Yeah.
If you kill yourself, just to be blunt and go into this in a minute.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you kill yourself, you cannot harm your soul,
No.
number one.
Right.
And B, this is how your soul sees your pain. It sees it as a vehicle to learn how to go from pain into love.
Exactly.
So the whole site's framed in, the message is framed in terms of every human journey from the soul's perspective is to find oneself nudged into pain and then to learn how to become empowered by bringing compassion to our pain.
Yes.
So the site's like this little wedge in the collective dialogue, this little teeny like pinpoint of inserting this message that all things can be healed, but don't be hard on yourself if you haven't yet believed it or found that to be true.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's just trying to insert this bit of dialogue because I have been there, but I knew I have not tried it because I knew from when I was a teenager that it was not an option.
Right.
And I was pretty sure life was baloney because how can I understand the pain I feel? And that's why I said, like, when I found astrology, I could finally understand certain things and start to let things go. But so I knew that I couldn't do it, and I was pretty sure that life was garbage and that God was a jerk. So I was
the power over God, right? We are a power over
exactly.
God,
That's
right? What?
Thank
Yeah.
you. Exactly. So I
Exactly.
was in a holding pattern
Yeah.
and depressive.
Yeah.
Not seeking help at all,
Yeah.
not medicated, not whatever, just like going back and forth between finding some hopefulness. Anyway, so I was in that space, and I just, I actually used the teachings of this philosopher, playwright, novelist. His name is Albert Camus. The last name is spelled Camus. He's a French Algerian. He was born in Algeria to French colonial people, and his deal is you can't really commit suicide. Like, it's not an option because the only person who can create the meaning that you need is yourself.
Yeah.
So he challenges us to every day make choices to create a sense of purpose.
Yes.
And the way he did it was not just through art, but he was a journalist who wrote basically articles supporting the colonized people in their oppression.
Right.
So social justice was like a meaningful thing. So I say create, I don't mean, yes, he wrote novels and plays and essays, but I mean also contributing something to the world or the community. This is a creation of meaning.
Right.
And he's classified, he would not like this, but he's classified as an existentialist, this
Right.
group of philosophers who are concerned with why is life worth living?
Yeah.
And essentially, all of them get to this place, except him. All of them get to this place, starting with Kierkegaard, going up through Nietzsche, going up through all these like moldy oldies, Heidegger, Sartre, whatever. They all get very depressing. And he says, okay, well, and the basis of existentialism, what they all have in common is you need something, you need validation from the outside world or from other people. You need meaningfulness. And the universe, you can't stop needing it. And the universe cannot give it to you and will never stop not giving it to you.
Yep.
So then you're in this horrible position of wondering if life is worth living. So he says, let's assume that the cruel universe does not care about you. Let's say, okay, that's true. What are you going to do about it? And so his idea is if you create through your choices something that matters to you,
yes,
then you're giving something of meaning, you start to spread meaningfulness.
Exactly.
And he's not saying that you're going to thereby save the rest of humanity or your parents or your kids or whatever. You're not any individual person, but you are saving yourself by creating a sense of meaningfulness for yourself. And you have to do it every day.
Yes.
And I've used that since I was 18 and I first read The Stranger and I picked this up.
Yeah.
This novel stranger. I've used it every day since then. I wrote my thesis in college on Kimu because
Yeah.
I was like, this stuff, I'm trying not to swear, this stuff is saving my life.
Yeah.
Because I saw, you
You
know,
could
even
swear,
when
it's
I,
okay.
okay, this shit is saving my life. And I was thinking about it for, so I, so the suicide thing, we need to, and I have worked with the departed spirits of people who have killed themselves as a medium. Like I've
Right.
worked as a medium with them, and I've helped some of them like a handful
Yeah.
crossover. I've worked with the people who have survived their siblings, their parents, their
Yeah.
kids' suicide, their
Yeah.
lovers, or their.
Yeah. Me too.
I've
Yeah.
worked with all those people,
Yeah.
and you know, everybody involved in this scenario is wondering what they did wrong.
Yeah, I know.
The departed spirits wondering, the
Yeah.
human, the survive. And so my thing with the healing suicide site is to say, you're not doing it wrong because you have pain that you don't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
Because pain is part of the vehicle for the soul's learning how to go into love. If you feel safe all the time, you will never grow into self-sufficiency and self-validation.
Exactly.
That's the message. So to understand why pain occurs is part of the message on healingsuicide.com.
Well, that's excellent. And because as what you're talking about is coming to that place through the pain of the self-love, this self-compassion, this self-kindness, because that is how then we create within ourselves, we're able to release that pain and come into that place within, because it's not out there, it's within. And then as we're creating within, we're creating without.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. But
Yeah,
we have
yeah,
to start within ourselves. On the back of
exactly.
my business card, since I got cards in 2004, it says the way you're wired is no accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my message. There's nothing wrong with you.
No, there's nothing wrong with you because your
Right.
soul came in to learn what it came in to learn, right? In the sequencing, so it's the soul advances when it transitions, because
That's right.
we are literally immortal. We are energy, and we just happen to be inhabiting this vehicle. So I'm going to want to do some more around the whole healing suicide with you another time, because I think, along with Lilith, and your other work, this is a big subject that needs to be explored so people understand it better instead of the fear around it.
Thank you. Because that's the worst part of it is
Yeah,
shaming yourself because you're in pain.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
fearing that you shouldn't talk about it, or someone's
yeah.
not going to be supportive.
Well,
That's
we've been programmed to do that,
that's
so that to keep us enslaved, to keep us on that hamster wheel kind of thing, to bring it to a tiny little thing, right? And it's time. And so we're going to leave it here, and I am just thrilled that you came on with me, because this is incredible work. Everyone, you really need to go get the books, find out where your Lilith is, go book some time with Tom, and you've been asking questions to yourself, you're feeling tired, exhausted, just like he's talking about. This is one of the ways to move forward, and I'm just so grateful to you, and look forward to us doing some more things together, because your message is really important, and I'm
Thank you,
grateful to you.
Catherine. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm really glad you asked me to say more about the healing suicide, because it's very important. So thank you.
It's really important. All right, I love you, and we will talk to you soon. I love everybody. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.